Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co-host, Paul. And we'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share our thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. Today on the pod, we'd like to talk to you about how we spend our time and how that changes over the course of a relationship and being parents, work responsibilities, all those types of things. And how I'm really feeling about right now is how I'm actually okay with how this has changed a little bit.
Yeah, and before we get all the way into it, we just want to encourage you to lean into community. You can hit us up on any of our socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, searching Marriage is Tougher. You can also go to our website, marriageisttougher.com. And if you'd like to be a guest, you can fill out a form at the bottom. We'll hear what you want to do, what topic you'd like to say. Tell us a little about yourself. We'll reach out and get you going, and we'll have you on the pod. Also, if you have any other feedback, anything you like or dislike about the episode, just leave us a comment there. Or again, you can hit us up in our DMs on IG. All right, so let's get into this episode.
Yeah. So I know that you've for sure experienced this, and it's rather new to me. But man, when the kids get into their athletics and school responsibilities and things of that nature, that is a huge time drain or time suck, I'll say, right? And I feel like I have been in this area where, well, previously I've been in this area where I was just trying to find out, how can I get time to go golfing? How can I get time to spend with friends? How can I do these specific things that I want to do? And now I'm in an area where I'm mostly concerned just about getting the kids to where they need to be, making sure they're okay, taken care of, and making sure that they're thriving. I've been thinking about this a little bit over the past week, and it's just weird. What are your thoughts on this?
I think my thoughts are it just morphs into that, right? Like you start, the kids are young, or they're not into activities for whatever reason. And then all of a sudden you start. Then you start with one, and it generally leads to another. And then if it's sports, it's like by season. If it's another activity, it's by like that schedule. Like, is it 6 months, a school year, whatever. If it's dance or instruments or something, you're like, okay, when are these concerts? When are these things? So we have all these practices up to the big thing, right? And then you realize it's important for the kids to have those experiences. And so it's like, how can I, one, diversify them? How can I find something that they like, that they'll be interested in, to put their effort in and help them grow? And then it's like, wait a minute, my life is getting my kids to things. But if you catch it early like you have, then you can really reset and realize, how do I feel about it? And then how do I think you're at that's a good spot. Like, how does it affect me? But then that next step is, how does it affect our marriage? And how do we still create time where it's just us, where we can still build on all of our intimacy levels, like our emotional, our recreational, like, can we still do things together? And then that leads to everything else that allows you to feel connected. So it's just once you start, it's basically over, and it can snowball. And that's why you have people, once their kids are gone, end up getting divorced because they don't know who this person is, because they just spent 18 to 30 years of being a activity parent or an activity partner. And now you're back, you're 45, 50 years old. So you're totally different from when you got married in your 20s and 30s. But you now have to say, who am I? And then you have to say, who are you?
Yeah. And I think why this came up so prevalently last week is for a couple different reasons. One, our calendar app isn't working appropriately. Okay, so we have a shared calendar through our iPhones, right? Um, but for whatever reason, I think about a month ago, while we update the calendar, we can only see our own updates. So we're trying to fix that, and then things started colliding on us. So like our life got real hectic there for a minute, and we're getting frustrated with each other, thinking like we can still see each other's events that we've added, and we're like, why is this happening? Right? Like I have an upcoming golf tournament, and it's on the same day that my daughter has a cheerleading competition, and there were some, I'll call them miscommunications about timing and whatnot. Um, and so now we have both of these events on one day, which are both still going to happen. But, you know, if I knew that was going to be the case, I might not have committed to this tournament. Right. But it's like already paid for and all that. So now it's going to be a thing. And then the other thing that is making me really reflect on this is, so it's, officially football season. I'm in a couple different fantasy football leagues. My daughter had cheer for a game on this previous Sunday, and so we're there. They have this, the organization that runs the our city's team has the parents donate their time at the snack stand, right? And they want you to put in two shifts, and what that looks like is a shift is a game long,
Mhm.
right? So my wife thought, well, she'll just knock out two shifts back to back, get it over with. We don't have to think about it for the rest of the season. I'm like, great idea. My fantasy draft just happened to be on that day, and she gets maybe 3/4 of the way through her first shift, and she's like, I don't feel well. I need you to come up here and fill in for me. And then my fantasy draft was starting in like 15 minutes. Right.
No.
Exactly. And so this funny feeling came across me. Like initially, I'm like, oh, that's really inconvenient. And then I thought to myself, but it's only inconvenient. Like I can still do what I got to do. I have my phone. Like it's 2023, right? I just put it up somewhere, and I can
Right.
still draft while I'm frying foods, which is what I did. And it actually turned into a really great experience. The guy who I was standing next to, um, was actually very much into fantasy football. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm in like 7 leagues." Right?
So
So we
like I
started
know.
talking about that. His shift was actually supposed to end when I went in there, but because he saw and we talked about what was going on, he was like, "Oh, I'll carry most of the weight. I'll stay on an extra shift just so you can get your draft in." I was like, "You don't have to do that." He's like, "No, I want to." He's like, "I'll help you out." So we had a really solid conversation for like a solid hour and a half because that game went into overtime. And behind that, it was kind of like, man, this was inconvenient, right? And there's all these things that we need to fix with the calendar, but it's more or less just having more conversations about what's going on until we get that fixed. But I didn't mind it, right? I didn't mind sacrificing the little bit that I had to. Um, I don't mind sacrificing, being able to spend time with friends or go golfing or doing some of the work things that I would like to do for the kids. I don't mind sacrificing for my wife, right? Like I'm actually actively thinking, how can I get her to have more her time, right? Some I don't want to call it me time, but
Right.
um, I don't know. So, like, is this something that goes through your head regularly, or
Yeah. I mean, it goes through my head all the time. Specifically if I'm taking my daughter somewhere or like setting it up, because calendaring is a whole thing. And we are very adamant, if you don't calendar with your wife, please get on the shared calendar. It will make everything so much easier. Um,
until it stops working.
yeah. So, well, I'll say just that story. Just make sure both people have the ability to see. Because my wife had turned mine off because she has so many like work calendar things that she does as she's a contractor. So what I used to do was just invite her to all the things that I added. But then she was like, "Oh no, the calendar's on. Just put it on there." So then I stopped inviting her. She's like, "I don't see anything. Like, how are we doing this?" I was like, "All right, well, let me." She's like, "Oh, I have your calendar turned off like that." So you just have to make sure you communicate through it. But all that to say, I mean, it does run through my head a lot, and it's the everything's an opportunity cost, right? You're missing out something to do something else. Like we talked about a couple episodes ago about like your container. You only have so much time. If a time is
Mhm.
container, you can only put so much in. So you have to take something out. You have to remove something to do something else. So I think it's just getting to the mindset that it's okay that you don't get to do, or we don't get to do everything we want to do all the time. But also knowing that as choosing to be a parent, choosing from the beginning, choosing to have sex, keep the baby, grow this baby, be a important figure in this child's life, like that is what we sign up for. And we don't always realize that we're signing up for that from the beginning. So, but once you do, like that's it. So know that to be a man is to sacrifice, and not in like a, oh, I give up so much stuff, I'm amazing, but just know that like there's just going to be choices, and we're not going to be able to do everything we want to do, um, to take care of. And I think that's about a part of the providing that we don't always talk about, like, and the safety part. Like there's a safety in providing a space for everyone else in your family to flourish and know that it's okay, and not feel bad about it or feel demonized for having activities or wanting to do, like you said, your wife having more me time. Um, Especially can't make your kids feel guilty for taking them to things. Now there is a balance between letting them know like this costs time, so that they'll
Mhm.
understand that as they grow, like you're not going to be able to do everything because you only have a certain amount of time. So if you choose this, you can't do this. So I'm choosing to take you here. You're going to be respectful and kind and the person that you're supposed to be while you're at this place.
Right,
So,
right.
but not saying, "Oh man, I gave up all this stuff so I can take you to this game." Like that's not it. Um, but yeah, it is on my mind all the time. Now it's more of a fleeting thing, and or it's more of like when I have to make a choice of something that I really want to do, then it's like,
Right. But it's worth being said as well. Like I am fulfilled by this, right? Running the kids here and there, seeing them grow and thrive in their respective activities, right? So it is like a sense of pride. Um, but I think part of it as well is just knowing that I have the capability to do that, right? And I have the resources to allow them to pick something and go all in on it. And those resources, like you said, not only being money but the time, right? Because I could be in a place where I just had to work 2 3 jobs and would not have the time to even just be there to support them, right? Because it means something to them to be able to see you in the stands, or know that you're going to show up and not have to ask, hey, are you going to come to my game today, right? And I feel for the parents where that's the case, right? Because knowing where I am now, I know that's not what any parent wants the situation to be, right? So I guess that is the point I'm trying to get across, is that feeling that I had of like, oh, I'm okay with this. Like, no, I'm actually fulfilled by this.
yeah, that's yeah, that's amazing. Um, and if you sit down as a dad, as a husband, and really sit, it and think about it, because sometimes we just don't take enough time to really consider things. But if you take the time to sit and realize, I think we all get fulfilled by that. That's one of those natural things that happen so that we
Hmm.
can be the best husband and best dad that we can. Kind of like that innate thing that happens to moms so that they can live through raising young children. Like, how do you have capacity? But it's just one of those things like, okay, it's this God given um, ability to feel pride and to want your offspring to be in things and do well. But I
Hmm.
think it's also one of those things that gives us patience to teach our kids as well. Um, so if you have the ability to, help them out in whatever sport there is, I'll tell you the toughest part for me, or one of the toughest aspects when I couldn't do that with gymnastics, because like I know nothing about gymnastics and my daughter was really good. So I really literally had to just depend on the coaches and like try to parrot the things that they said. But like I know
Right, right.
nothing. It all looks the same every time unless you fall. So, um, but yeah, so that's really good. It's just a mindset shift. And I think coming into it, if you can embrace that this is what I'm doing and this is for my kids and I want the best for them, and this is a part of them that builds character and grows when they're in these activities. Um, it's definitely a that if you go into it that way, it can be an amazing experience.
Yeah. All right. Now, as we have about, you know, 8 minutes left or so, let's turn this 180. How do we have the discussion with our children when we can't be there? Right. Because I feel like that's, especially in my scenario, going to be almost inevitable. Um, three children, similar ages, and as they get into these activities, like they're going to be happening at the same time at some point. Right? Is that something you've experienced? I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, I think um, it's explaining what commitment and what your word means, right?
Mm,
So it's when you're telling them they can't be there, it's because you value them having the knowledge, but it's also you value that you have a commitment with whatever else is conflicting. So whether that's,
mhm.
me and mommy swap. So like I have to go to your brother's game this time, so I can't be at your thing, right? Or
Right.
um, part of my job is I have to do this. So, for this time, like just remember I will be at the next one and I've come to all the other ones, like reminding them, giving them the history and the receipts of you being there. Um, that helps. And it helps as they get older too. But I'll say the two things that help the most is one, having the conversation at all. And two, um, man, my mind just went blank because two is more important than one. um,
I got
no,
you.
yes,
I hate when that
making
happens.
sure you have the conversation and just explaining what what's happening, because they'll understand that as they get older, that there will be trade offs and things. Oh, that's what I'm saying. Number two is being there when you can, because when
Okay.
they have the expectation that you're going to be there, um, and they know what that is, they'll see, they'll realize the one off for what it is, right? So that
Hmm.
it's not a regular thing. I'm just not, it's not that I'm not coming to your events. It's because there's another thing that has value that I need to be at. Um,
Hmm.
and once they see that, I mean, because I always think like, man, am I going to scar her to life? Is she going to be in therapy saying that he never came to my games? We're just using that example. Um,
Right, right.
but because a lot of times as they get older, and I know that because I have an older one, right? They understand what the sacrifice was to get to their games or their events. So
I got you.
it will help you set them up as humans as they get older, even when you can't be there, because they'll understand why, especially if you explain it. So I hope that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think I might need to also just prepare for having those conversations, number one, but number two, also they can still be upset,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and just take solace in knowing that I'm doing the best that I can to be everywhere,
Right.
right? Um, because I don't know, my kids are very emotional. They wear their hearts on their sleeves, and when they're not happy about something, they tell you about it, and we
Mm-hmm.
encourage it, you know. Um, and it's just not always convenient, right? But life isn't convenient. Um, so I don't know. I'm okay with it. I'm here for it. I'm I think like you said, going to benefit from thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's good. I mean, this just happened to me this past week. Like we came back from vacation and um, we, before we got the softball schedule, Crystal and I had agreed to be on the worship team for 2 weeks out of the month. But we didn't know if because we have Thursday rehearsal. We didn't know if the game option days were Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So, but we didn't get the schedule. We'd already committed to being on the worship team before we got the schedule for softball for fall ball. So we'd already made that commitment. Comes out, games are only on Thursdays and Saturdays. So we thought we may have some weeks where it'd be like Tuesday, nothing on Thursday, so whatever. Um, so all that to say is I wasn't at her game. I wasn't fully at her game this past week because I had to be at rehearsal. But I brought her to, the pregame stuff, talked her through, saw an inning, and then I had to leave. Um, we had, some people come in and some family friends come and bring her up and all that, but she was bummed about it. Um, but at the same time, um, it was a response. We talked about it. It was a responsibility that we had made and a commitment, and we stay true to our word. Um, and we've come to all your other things, and we'll be at all the other things that you have, except for in times that we can't. So she understood. Obviously, she's 10, so it's a little bit easier to say. Um,
right.
but she's also very used to both of us being at all the things because we're privileged enough to have that ability.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's even some school things that I had to miss this year that I usually don't. And she was like, we just talked through it. But then she just, she's a kid. So she bounced back. And, as long as one of us is there, she generally is okay. Um,
Yeah.
so I know with three, I don't know how that's going to work, but
Yeah. I don't know, man. We'll see. Hopefully they'll play on the same
yeah.
teams or something. um, and you just got me thinking, having a conversation after the fact as well, and allowing them to tell you about their experience if you couldn't be there, and like just fully engaging in allowing them to tell you all about what happened, um, and just showing that you are very much interested in what was going on. You know, this, like you said, was maybe just a one-off, um, but showing that you definitely want to be there is probably a very positive experience for them as well.
Yeah. Especially if your kids are more processors in a verbal space. So they can, because my daughter is that way. So she'll tell you all about the
Mhm.
things. She'll tell you the same story 3 times, 3 different days. But, you just listen to it and you live it up. So, yeah, that's a good point. Have an after the fact conversation and really try to mitigate the distractions. So even if they like,
Mhm.
if you're walking in the door and they're like, "Daddy, let me tell you," just like, just give me 5 minutes. Let me get in the door so I can give you all the attention. So let them know how much time you need before you're ready and why, because you want to give them all the attention. And then make sure you give them that attention. And that definitely helps.
That's good. That's good. All right, man. We're up on time. You got anything else that will polish this gem?
I think we're good.
All right.
All right. Yeah, we appreciate you guys leaning in this conversation with us. Please, please, if you found any value out of this, please review, rate our show on any of the platforms that you're hearing it on, as well as reach out to us on Instagram in our DMs. Leave a comment anywhere, as well as hit us up on our website, marriageisttougher.com. Again, so you can be a guest or any feedback you have for us. So we appreciate you, and we will talk to you next time.
Peace.